There are parts of this episode that I have still not recovered from. I'm pretty sure if you've seen the episode, you know what I'm talking about. So we're going to get right into it. Let's go. We open the episode with both Vadik and, of course, Starfleet still hunting for the Titan. I just have to say, straight up front, I'm still not okay about Ro. I'm just not okay about Ro. We had her back and then she was gone. We get transponders being dropped all through Federation space, which leads to, first we get a nice clear shot of the Intrepid flying in, and then it's joined by an Excelsior 2 and a Sagan class as well. So nice nods back to season 2 there. There's another transponder that's found by the Shrike. This whole opening scene with Vadik, for me, absolute up. Amanda Plummer is playing a blinder this season. Now, she is all sorts of over the top and camp, and yet it works. Like I've said before, when she is chewing the scenery, it works, but then when she's hunting the crew down, she is absolute cold, she means business. She has that performative nature of being, you know, this villain that's coming to get them, but also she is a professional at what she's doing. Her speech where she espouses how the changelings will rise again and they will free their brothers and sisters from all of this oppression that the Federation has rained upon them. There was a good comparison that Chris made to T'Kuvma back in Discovery's opening episodes. It's the same kind of theme. Now, perhaps it's merely the fact that Amanda Plummer sells it so much stronger that this is a much more worrying speech, because this is pretty bloody rousing. But there is something in this scene that it stuck out a bit, and it is a down for me, that Vadik is absolutely decrying how the changelings are going to rise again. We're going to protect all of our brothers and sisters, and without a moment's hesitation, kills one of her crew, has him vaporized. And it just seems very much at odds at what she's saying. It seems to fall back on the, you know, twirly mustache, I am the evil villain, I can kill any of my henchmen at any moment. And I just thought, well, if these are the ones you're going to hell and high water to save, surely you're not going to do this. So that stuck out a little bit. But I think it's because it stands out, is because Plummer sells this liberator character so well. Last week I was there saying, what is Jack? Jack's a sleeper agent. Jack is this, Jack is that. Nope, Jack is sick. Jack has Irumodic syndrome that's been passed on from his father, Jean-Luc Picard. Now, of course, going back to All Good Things, there was scenes in the contemporary, present, and the future where Beverly said, look, Jean-Luc, you might live with this for decades. Although Jack seems to be experiencing these symptoms a little bit earlier than Jean-Luc did, it's the same message here. As Beverly says, you know, this could be decades before they manifest. Jean-Luc, you can see it's eating him up inside, that, yep, he's passed this on to his kid. And he starts to speak, and Beverly just says, you can either waste time burdening yourself or spend time unburdening him, and that is an up from me. One of the great things about this season is it's not seeing Jean-Luc being knocked back again and again, it's that the crew around him are clearly expanding his view on the universe. We get another bar scene in 10 Forward, to the point where, has Patrick Stewart written into his contract that there must be a bar scene in every episode? I think it's only episode 2 hasn't featured 10 Forward. Oh, I'm not complaining. I love the 10 Forward set. So I just think it's great. And this is a great scene between the two of them. Patrick Stewart does very little, and with what he does a lot. Ed Speleers really sells this. You can see how conflicted he is. He is upset. He is, in a way, relieved that he has an answer. He knows that it's not going to be straight away, and he doesn't go on the attack. Certainly there are statements of, thanks a bunch, Dad. You can tell that he knows logically this is not something, you know, Jean-Luc chose to give to him. There is a great line that, look at what Van Gogh did with an inflated brain. So give me a few years and a few spare ears. And that was just a great line. They sell this scene really, really well. So I'm just loving Patrick Stewart and Ed Speleers this season. This switches then to, of course, Raffi and Worf arriving on the Titan. And of course this scene isn't up, it's just brilliant. There's the hug between Beverly and Worf, he's clearly uncomfortable, she clearly doesn't care. The reunion between Seven and Raffi, which is quite muted, and I like it. Worf says, "It has been 11 years since I've seen you, Captain. Apart from the infrequent messages and the annual bottle of sour mead." And, you know, Picard's like, "Sour mead?" And Riker just goes, "Chateau Picard." That was an up. Seeing more of the TNG cast coming together like this it just warms my cold little heart. We quickly move to the observation lounge. This is an up from me because this is straight out of the TNG playbook. They're all sitting around the table together and they're all in very important seats, and I have a solidarity down I have to give here. And you might be looking at me going, "Sean, what are you doing? Why is Shaw in the back? This is Shaw's ship. He should be up front and he should be nice and centre. This is a solidarity down for Shaw. Justice for Shaw. Give him back his chair." But the whole scene overall, it's directly out of the, you know, the observation lounge scenes in TNG, the wardroom from DS9, and particularly DS9 because there's a talk of the Dominion War and the changeling virus. It's great for those of us who've been following along the lore and we've been watching forever, but it's just expository enough that, you know, new viewers can sort of get what's going on. So they talk about they need to get to Daystrom Station. Now this is different from Daystrom Institute. Daystrom Institute is still on Okinawa on Earth. Daystrom Station is an off-site Black Ops location where you've got all the most classified things that, you know, Starfleet wants to keep hidden. Visually, it's clearly it's like Jupiter Station just added on a few bits, which I really like because I love that design. They are separate things. I saw a few questions about that, you know, over the course of the week. So they are separate areas. They don't waste much time. The Titan flies straight there, hides out behind the moon, and Riker, Worf, and Raffi are set to be on this away mission to go down to the station. Now, before they go, Raffi and Seven have a little bit of a looks like Seven's coming too, and you know, Worf says, "I have gone into battle with lovers countless times. There is always..." And they sort of cut him off and Seven goes, "Well, I'm not going." And Worf says, "Oh, thank God. You know, I was practicing deceit." Up. Who knew Worf was going to be the comic relief of the season? Riker, Worf, and Raffi beam down. We get that funny line that was in the trailer. You should know I now prefer pacifism to actual combat. We're all gonna die." Then we're standing in Daystrom in the porch, and there's a lot of green lighting going on. It's very not really Starfleet. So we're going to, you know, is there integration of like Romulan technology or Borg technology or Breen technology? You know, who uses green? What follows is, of course, a beautiful scene of Easter eggs. Cetacean observations, you know it's coming, I'm going to have a great time. But like, think of some of the ones that stand out here. An attack fighting Tribble that of course Worf doesn't get along with very well. The body of James T. Kirk. Now, what is that doing there? What do we know about James T. Kirk? James T. Kirk dies on Viridian 3 in Star Trek Generations, helping to save the planet with Picard from Sauron. Picard builds a cairn over his body and places that movie insignia badge on it. Beautiful send-off scene. Very good. But however you feel about the fact that he died, beautiful scene. Starfleet now faced with a choice. Do we leave his body there, which of course they could, or do we bring him back and give him a full state funeral? Which of course they probably should. So they've obviously opted for something in the middle, which is we're going to take his body back, but we're not going to do a state funeral. We've got Kirk's body here. We also have the Genesis 2 device. For the love of God, don't use it. You know, this is obviously a smorgasbord of Easter eggs for us. So I'm going to go into a little bit more detail in Cetacean observations about that. What we see is as we get closer to this central core is... boom! Moriarty, Professor James Moriarty, appears and says, "Greetings, old friends." You know, pointing a pistol at them, and Raffi understandably is, "What is going on here?" Whereas Worf and Riker both recognize him, and it's just hilarity. There is an argument that for this season, they're being very, very heavy-handed with Easter eggs, that there's a lot of them, that somehow they may not, you know, suit the story. Now, completely disregarding everything I just said, the Titan arrives at Aethan Prime, space dock. actual space dock from Star Trek's 3, 4, 5, and 6. It is the OG. It is in orbit of Ethan Prime. And you know what? It's not just space dock anymore. It's the Fleet Museum. Are you kidding me? Do you have any question as to what the Latinum Up was going to be for this episode? Let me just run down what we see. Or, like, beside this station, we have a Romulan bird of prey, which is the CGI model, obviously, from Picard and Strange New Worlds, as opposed to the one from the original series, which I can handle. We see a Saber class, an Akira class. We see a Constellation class, the OG Stargazer. So I'm just like, this is amazing. How can it get better than this? The Defiant. The USS Defiant. And as that's happening, the DS9 theme plays over it. And then, even more shockingly, an original series Constitution class vessel. It's the USS New Jersey 1975. Now, the first thing that popped into my head was like, we know now that Star Trek Picard has confirmed that both the Strange New Worlds Constitution class ship and the original series Constitution class ship, they are both canon. So we can perhaps see that maybe Pike's Enterprise will be refit into this one as time goes on. Maybe it'll stop there. The Enterprise A. I'm not gonna lie, I teared up. A lot of you probably know the refit 1701 is my ship. That's my one that I love the most. And of course, Enterprise A wasn't destroyed, it was decommissioned. So where did it go? It went to the Great Fleet Museum in the sky, and we see for the first time since Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, in live action, that refit Constitution class. Oh my god, that gets its own up. Of course, we get the wonderful Geordi LaForge. And of course, I mean, does that go without saying that's an up as well? LeVar Burton is fantastic in this episode. Great to see him alongside Mika Burton as well, real life daughter. She is playing Alandra in this episode. Just fantastic. And seeing Sydney and Alandra having such a good, a good rapport as well. It feels so natural. This is fantastic. And of course, that scene in the transporter bay again, we get more TNG crew back together and it feels amazing. Back over we go to Daystrom Station, and we start to get a little bit of a tease as to what might be coming, because we hear the beginnings of a tune. Moriarty says that this is a tune that has been running through his head, driving him mad. We intercut footage from Encounter at Farpoint. As far back in TNG's history as you can go, we see Babyface Riker, and of course, whistling Pop Goes the Weasel. That is an up. You may remember that earlier on, we noticed Pop Goes the Weasel was written in the closing credits of the season. If I'm right, we may be cutting to a scene right now. We get a musical phrase. Bear with me. Marvelous. I will say as well, all respect to our writer Jack Kiley, who grabbed that one for us. He was the one who identified it. Well done, Jack. I do have to come in with a down. Now, the down is, that's all the Moriarty we get. And pretty much all of that was in the trailer. Moriarty was being set up to be this great villain, and of course now it turns out that it's a misdirect. Now, it's possible we may see Moriarty again in the rest of the season, but I guess I was hoping for more. So yeah, that for me. Down that we got so little of Moriarty. Daniel Davis was brilliant in it, but love that he was back in it. I mean, it was just so much fun and silly. And anyway, Riker finishes the tune, we get in and we find out who the manifest for Daystrom Institute is. It's a very familiar looking face. But back aboard the Titan, we get that great scene again in the observation lounge between Geordi and Jean-Luc. It's wonderful because it's the two closest characters to the feel of All Good Things. You know that scene where Geordi talks to Picard in the vineyard in Le Bar in All Good Things? You get that kind of camaraderie here. Geordi feels the most, I think, out of the TNG cast we've seen so far. And what I mean by that is that, as he says, Jean-Luc knowingly puts Sydney at risk. Now, whether that's accurate or not, you can certainly understand why he sees it that way. And, you know, he's not interested in helping. You can't risk my girls. Whatever else you do, you cannot risk my children. And, you know, that is something that can resonate with Picard. He's just learned that through no fault of his own child is having to deal with the fallout of being Picard's child. Now, we get this great scene on the bridge of the Titan. Starts with a joke where Jack goes to sit down in the captain's chair and Seven says off. And we run through again. There's more shots of amazing ships, but we get a beautiful moment where Seven switches the view to Voyager. And there it is, the Intrepid class USS Voyager for the first time since Endgame. It's beautifully realized. It looks stunning. The Voyager theme plays over it. That was wonderful as well. And it's just awesome. It's just awesome. That whole scene, that's an up from me. Seven is talking about that's where she found her family. And it was just, I mean, if it didn't warm your heart, come on now, what isn't? Or what is going to warm your heart? They close up on another ship. There was something I never thought I was going to get to see or hear again in Star Trek. And that is the HMS Bounty, clue was in the name of the episode, and Leonard Rosenman's theme from Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. Please taken up. It's so much fun. And we had to talk about, oh yeah, that thing with the whales. I love that that's just common knowledge as well. And Seven says, oh well, yeah, had an awful time finding it because the cloak engaged. And there's a beat where they're like, cloak, you say? Now, back to Daystrom again, and at this point we're trying to activate this golem, who is an aged version of the Sung-type android. Let's just say that for the moment. And they activate a file, and we see AI Sung, Hippie Sung. And there's a great exploration as Sung discusses the importance of these androids, these synths, these golems to history. It's cut back and forth with footage of the Fleet Museum, and it is wonderful. It is lovely. And they talk about evolution, and we get this close-up from the Enterprise A to the Titan A. We find out, of course, that Sung has passed away, so RIP AI Sung. The importance of what is now inside this golem. We have Lal. Very nice of you to remember the fact that Data had a daughter before season 1. There's a lot of B4. He casually mentions there's a bit of lore in there. I can't imagine that was a very good idea. And of course, a lot of data. Riker, Worf, and Raffi know that we are taking Data with us because he's the security system. You know, he is the AI running Daystrom Institute. They have to wait for the Titan to get back. We cut back to the Titan, and then we have a great scene up. Shaw completely nerding out with Geordi, and he's overwhelmed with fanboying. And hey, believe me, buddy, I get how it feels. And Geordi's like, listen, I would love to sit here and geek out with you, but we don't have time. Then, of course, the ship phases, because Jack and Sydney have nicked a cloaking device from the Bounty. Wow, what a great way to tie in these legacies together. Geordi is not entirely impressed with this, as he turns around to Picard and says, do you have any idea how many treaties this is violating? And he makes a decision, he helps them fix it, and then they get out to Daystrom Institute. Starfleet Security has found Riker, Worf, and Raffi. They do manage to escape, kind of. Raffi, Worf, and, I'm just going to say Data, are beamed aboard the Titan. Riker, unfortunately, is hit with an transport inhibitor, and we then discover that Riker has not been captured by Starfleet Security, he's been captured by Vadic. Aboard the Titan, Geordi is trying to activate Data, while Worf is pledging that woe betide any man or beast who tries to get in his way of getting Will Riker back home again. They turn on Data, and the first word is Geordi? Geordi and Data, taken up. It's tiny, it's a tiny moment, but the fact that they have that moment, that's an up. We kind of cycle through a few of the personalities. We do get a little bit of B4, we do get a little bit of Sung, we do get a little bit of lore, but we get back to Data again, and they're like, Data, what was stolen from Daystrom? What was stolen from Daystrom? And Data looks at Picard and he goes, Jean-Luc Picard. Picard's like, yeah, what was taken? He goes, Jean-Luc Picard. And he goes, what was taken? And Data just goes and activates some cool new projector eyes. Picard's body from the end of season 1, his pre-Golem body, is the thing that's been stolen from Daystrom. What the heck does that mean? We've had a tease of Captain Kirk's body, Picard's body's been stolen. What is going on here? Meanwhile, back on the Shrike, Riker's just laughing at Vadic like, 35 years, do you really think I'm going to break for my old friends? And Vadic goes, no, not for your friends. And then we find Deanna Troi. A lot happened this week. A lot. So let's get straight to it. Let's join me at the Sedation Observations. That opening scene with the transponder, we see the Intrepid. We also see an Excelsior 2 and a Sagan class. We get, of course, a mention of Irumodic Syndrome. First time we hear the transporter. For me, it might have been the whole season, but I really heard the original series transporter noise there. We get the Klingon theme as Worf steps off the pad. We get a reference to the Dominion War. They talk about the changeling virus and how Starfleet delivered the cure to the link, which is not entirely accurate. Odo did, okay. Now, Daystrom Station, of course, call back to both Daystrom Institute and the Jupiter Station, which I mentioned earlier on. Now, that whole observation lounge scene feels like a nice callback to TNG. Actually, something I want to highlight here. Picard says burgle. Riker goes, excellent use of the word burgle, and Shaw nods. That's an up. Also, burgle, often used in the UK and Ireland as a word, it's just nice to feel represented. We now know, because of how the episode ends, that when Worf, Riker and Raffi arrive on Daystrom Institute and they activate the key, Brent Spiner's voice welcomes them to Daystrom Station. Now, the two Echelon class ships which are orbiting Daystrom Station, they're very like the Texas class ships from Star Trek Lower Decks, and also like somebody cut a Sagan class in half. They are named the USS Sternbach for Rick Sternbach, designer of so much of Star Trek, and the USS Cole, another 12 Monkeys reference. Inside Daystrom Institute, we have on the, in the collection, we've got a Thalaron generator from Star Trek Nemesis. We get a shout out to Section 31. The Genesis 2 device is there. And as we see that, James Horner's theme from The Wrath of Khan plays over that scene. James T. Kirk's body is there with the original series theme playing over that. A Borg vinculum can be seen behind Worf. Now, that's not before we see the genetically modified Tribble, which tries to eat his face. As the computer AI recognizes these people, a little picture of Riker pops up on screen. That is the promo image for Star Trek Nemesis. Now we see a holographic crow flying through the station. Well, that is straight out of Birthright, and of course it's to do with Data's dreams of Dr. Sung. Now, which is actually commented again by Raffi saying it looks like something from her nightmares, which ties back into that. Then of course, I think therefore I am, Professor Moriarty, there we go. As we arrive at Space Dock, we get the motion picture, the floating office theme. That's the one that leads into the refit Enterprise pan-by. Of course, Space Dock, Geordi himself is an Easter egg. I want to say I've been vindicated for something. Geordi also disagrees that gathering the entire fleet in one location is a terrible idea. I said that last week and some people said, well, it couldn't have been the whole the fleet. No, it is. It's the whole fleet. Thank you, Geordi, for backing me up there. There is what feels like possible. Now, I might be reaching here, but this Easter egg could be a thing. All of the ships are now connected. That's how the ships are finding the Titan. So there's a pro and con here. Pro is that, okay, great, you'll never get lost. There won't, well, even if there is a Voyager situation, maybe that's too far. Con, ever seen Battlestar Galactica? Yeah, maybe let's not network all the ships. In Daystrom Station, as Moriarty fires at the trio, they dive out of the way, and behind them is what appears to be Jonathan Archer's body. Is there a theme that if you're a captain of an Enterprise, your body gets dropped into Daystrom Station? In Daystrom Station, that tune that we all know, Pop Goes the Weasel, we get Farpoint footage, we get Marvelous, which is wonderful, and of course we get Data himself. The USS Defiant, the Defiant theme tune, the TOS Connie. Oh, by the way, the New Jersey, 1975, Terry Matalos was born in New Jersey in 1975. The Enterprise A with the original series theme playing over it, Voyager with the Voyager theme playing over it, the HMS Bounty with the Voyage Home theme playing over it. Cutting back to Daystrom Institute as well, we get B4, we get AI Sung. Cutting back to Space Dock again, take a massive up because the NX-01 refit with the Star Drive section is in the Fleet Museum. That was beautiful. That was a beautiful inclusion. We've got Kronos 1, the ship of Gorkon in Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. We've got a Saber-class ship. We've got, obviously, as I mentioned earlier, a Romulan Bird of Prey, the Stargazer, Akira-class, Nebula-class, what possibly is the original Excelsior, and a Miranda-class as well. On Daystar Mystery, we get Lal, Lore, Geordi's reference to how many Federation treaties it violates? Well, it at least violates the Treaty of Algeron. Which actually, there's one thing there. This is both an Easter egg and unfortunately this is a down that Seven says we're going to have to decloak to beam. But this is the cloaking device from Star Trek 3 and 4, and they beamed Gillian Taylor up while cloaked in Golden Gate Park. You can do that. You can beam while cloaked, particularly with this cloaking device. Transport inhibitors, very like Star Trek Insurrections, isolinear tags, and of course, item M510 is a callback to the original series episode, The Ultimate Computer. Thank you so much, folks, for watching. You're all awesome. You're incredible. Chris, thank you so much for editing this video. Please hope you get some sleep after this. What did you think? Are you as excited as I am to see all these wonderful, wonderful things in this episode? Did you think that Ro Laren was going to be the biggest surprise of the season? I did. Thank you so much. Please make sure you're liking, sharing, and subscribing. You can find us on Twitter at Trek Culture. Find us on Instagram at Trek Culture YT. I'm at Sean Ferrick on Twitter. You can catch Chris at Chris Edit over on Twitter and Instagram as well. Folks, thank you so much. Thank you for engaging. I'm loving the chats that we're getting after every episode. Remember, try not to spoil anything online. This is a wonderful season of lots of lovely surprises. So we're all of us guilty in some way. We're all trying to work on that. So let's everyone just work on it together and not spoil surprises, okay? You're awesome. You're wonderful. Make sure that you live long and prosper until I see you again. And in the meantime, have a wonderful week. Make it so.